Some people walk into a room and instantly sense the mood, read the subtext, and feel the hidden tension no one is talking about. Others barely notice anything beyond what's directly in front of them. You've probably met that one friend who seemed old even as a child, deep, reflective, strangely wise. It can feel like they were born more awake. But what does that really mean? Are some people genuinely born more conscious, more spiritually tuned in, more self-aware, or is it just life experience, trauma, or training? And if some are born more awake, what does that say about the rest of us? In this video, we're going to peel back the layers, science, psychology, and spirituality, to explore why awareness isn't distributed equally and how you can grow yours no matter where you started. Let's begin by asking, what does being awake actually mean? Before we talk about why some people seem more awake, we need to define what awake even is. In this video, we're using the word to mean a combination of self-awareness, emotional sensitivity, intuition, and a sense that there's more to life than just routines and consumption. It's that feeling of watching your own thoughts, questioning your conditioning, and sensing deeper patterns in your experiences. We'll look at science like brain wiring, genetics, and temperament. We'll dive into psychology, trauma, attachment, personality types, and we'll explore spiritual ideas like old souls, karmic lessons, and awakening. None of this is about superiority. It's about understanding differences in awareness so we can grow with more compassion. If you're interested in this kind of deep dive content, consider subscribing and gently tapping the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. And stay with me until the end, where I'll share key steps to expand your own awareness. Let's start with brain wiring, because some aspects of awareness begin before we ever speak a word. Research shows that people vary in baseline levels of arousal and sensitivity. Some nervous systems are naturally more reactive. They notice small changes in sound, light, facial expression, and emotional tone. These people often feel too sensitive in childhood, but that same sensitivity can later translate into higher awareness. Brain imaging studies also suggest that individuals with more active default mode networks tend to ruminate and self-reflect more, sometimes painfully, but also deeply. Certain genetic traits influence dopamine and serotonin systems, shaping how much stimulation we seek and how intensely we process experience. None of this determines your destiny, but it does create a starting point. If your brain is wired to notice more, feel more, and think more, you'll likely confront big questions earlier in life, questions others may not even realize exist. Temperament is another major piece. Psychologists have long observed that even newborns differ dramatically. Some are calm and adaptable, others highly reactive, watchful, or cautious. Traits like introversion, high sensitivity, and openness to experience are often present from very early on. A highly sensitive, observant child may sit back and quietly study everyone in the room, piecing together patterns. An open, imaginative child may question rules instead of simply following them. Meanwhile, a more easygoing, stimulation-seeking child might be happy focusing on external activities and social fun, without much impulse to analyze deeper layers of reality. Neither is better or worse, but they lead to different kinds of inner lives. People with certain temperaments naturally spend more time in reflection and meaning-making. That reflective style often becomes the soil for spiritual or psychological awakening later on, especially when combined with intense life experiences. Now we move into complicated territory, trauma and adversity. Many people who describe themselves as awake or old souls have lived through significant pain, emotional neglect, loss, instability, or feeling profoundly misunderstood. Trauma can shatter the illusion of a safe, predictable world very early. When that happens, a child may start questioning everything. Why are people like this? What's the point of life? What's really going on beneath the surface? In a strange way, suffering can force awareness open, like a seed cracked by pressure. But it's important to say, trauma is not a prerequisite for awareness, and it's not romantic. It can also lead to numbness, disconnection, and survival-focused thinking. The difference often comes down to support, temperament, and timing. Some people transform their pain into insight. Others barely get the chance. When we see someone more awake, we often have no idea what it cost them to get there. Attachment. The way we bond with caregivers also shapes how awake we become. A child with secure attachment usually feels safe enough to explore the world and their inner life. They can ask questions, express feelings, and be met with empathy. This environment supports healthy self-awareness without overwhelming fear. On the other hand, inconsistent or unsafe attachment can make a child hypervigilant, always scanning for danger, constantly reading subtle cues to survive. That hyper-awareness of others' moods and micro-expressions can look like advanced intuition later in life. The cost is anxiety and emotional exhaustion. Some people are awake because they had room to grow. Others are awake because they never had the luxury of being asleep. Understanding this can help us have compassion for different paths and stop romanticizing suffering as the only road to depth. Safety plus curiosity is a powerful, often overlooked route to awakening, too. Personality theory gives us another lens. Take introversion and extroversion. Introverts tend to direct energy inward. They recharge alone, think before speaking, and often analyze their experiences in depth. Extroverts typically process outwardly through action and interaction, which can mean less solitary introspection. Then there's openness to experience, a trait linked to creativity, imagination, and interest in abstract ideas. People high in openness are more likely to explore spirituality, philosophy, and the big picture meaning of life. Add conscientiousness, agreeableness, and emotional stability, and you get very different inner worlds. Some combinations create a personality that's naturally oriented toward reflection and existential curiosity. Others create a more practical, here and now focus. Again, this isn't a hierarchy. Society actually needs both. But if you're highly introverted and open, you may feel like you were born awake simply because your mind refuses to stay on the surface of things for very long. Let's talk about something more subtle. Metacognition, the ability to notice your own thoughts. Not everyone naturally stands back and watches the mind in action. Some people are deeply fused with their thoughts. They are their stories. Others frequently step into an observer role, almost like watching a movie of their life. This observer perspective is a cornerstone of many spiritual traditions and meditative practices, but for some, it appears early and spontaneously. They might wonder, who is the one noticing my thoughts? As a teenager, without ever reading a spiritual book. That's a form of being more awake, conscious of consciousness itself. This tendency is influenced by temperament, upbringing, and sometimes existential shocks, like near-death experiences or intense loss. But even without extremes, some minds just lean towards self-observation. If you've always felt like you're half a step outside your own experience, that's a sign of a naturally reflective, awakening-oriented mind. Cultural and family narratives also decide what kind of awareness is rewarded or punished. In some families, questioning, feeling deeply, or talking about intuition is dismissed as weird or dramatic. In others, curiosity, emotional honesty, and spiritual inquiry are encouraged. Imagine two children. One grows up in a household that values productivity, appearances, and staying busy. The other in a home where long conversations about meaning, ethics, and dreams are normal. Both might have similar inner potential, but only one gets language and validation for being awake. Culture at large can do the same. Materialistic, hyper-competitive environments push people toward external measures of success and away from introspection. More contemplative cultures or subcultures create space for slowness, reflection, and spiritual practice, so some people appear more awake partly because they were allowed to be, and others hide their awareness to survive socially. Now we step into spiritual territory, the idea of old souls. Across cultures, there's a recurring intuition that some people are simply born with a deeper, wiser energy, like they've done this many times before. Whether you see this literally, past lives, reincarnation, or metaphorically, inherited psychological patterns, ancestral memory, the pattern is similar. Old soul types often feel out of place among peers, drawn to older friends, big questions, and inner exploration. They might experience early disillusionment with superficial goals and feel a quiet pull towards service, creativity, or contemplation. From a psychological perspective, old soul can be a narrative we use to describe maturity, empathy, and sensitivity. From a spiritual perspective, it might point to a soul level journey that didn't begin at birth. You don't have to believe in reincarnation to respect the lived reality. Some people arrive with a gravity and awareness that's hard to explain purely by environment. Another factor is sensitivity to suffering, not just personal pain, but the collective pain of others, animals, and the planet. Some people can't easily look away. News stories, injustice, cruelty, or environmental destruction hit them like a physical blow. This empathic sensitivity can fast-track awakening because it forces a confrontation with difficult truths, the fragility of life, the interconnectedness of everything, the reality of human shadow. Those who feel this early often seek meaning, healing, or spiritual frameworks to hold the weight of what they see. Others with thicker emotional boundaries or different conditioning might not feel that same push. They can live more comfortably inside smaller circles of concern. Again, neither path is morally superior. But high empathy combined with reflection often creates a pressure cooker for awareness, one that can lead to burnout if not managed, or to profound compassion and wisdom if supported. Let's address a common misconception. Being more awake does not mean being happier, more functional, or more successful by default. In fact, early or intense awareness can feel like a curse. You notice hypocrisy, mortality, meaninglessness, and injustice, while your peers are focused on grades, parties, or promotions. This can lead to alienation, depression, or spiritual bypassing, clinging to lofty ideas to escape unresolved pain. Some highly aware people struggle with basic life tasks, boundaries, or self-care. Others weaponize their awareness, seeing themselves as superior or detached from asleep people. True awakening, though, tends to move toward humility and integration, seeing your own shadow, honoring your human needs, and respecting different stages of development. If you feel more awake, it's not a badge, it's a responsibility to ground, to grow, and to relate to others with compassion, not contempt. So if you don't feel particularly awake, are you doomed to stay that way? Absolutely not. While some people start the game with heightened sensitivity or introspection, awareness is fundamentally a trainable capacity. Practices like mindfulness, journaling, therapy, and shadow work help you see your patterns instead of being run by them. Reading widely, psychology, philosophy, spiritual texts, gives your intuition language and structure. Honest conversations with deep-thinking friends stretch your perspective. Even simple habits, like pausing before reacting or observing your emotional triggers, gradually build the muscle of self-awareness. Awakening is less a lightning strike and more a series of small choices to look, feel, and question instead of numbing out. You may not have been born with your awareness dial turned to maximum, but you absolutely can turn the dial up over time without glamorizing suffering or rejecting ordinary life. Let's distill everything into a few core takeaways. First, some people do seem born more awake, but that usually reflects a mix of inborn sensitivity, temperament, and early experiences, not cosmic favoritism. Second, adversity and trauma can crack awareness open, but they can also shut it down. Safety and curiosity are just as powerful pathways to depth. Third, traits like introversion, openness, empathy, and metacognition create fertile ground for awakening, yet they come with challenges, overthinking, overwhelm, or alienation. Fourth, cultural and family narratives either nourish or suppress the expression of awareness, shaping how visible it becomes. Finally, awakening is not a status symbol. It's an ongoing process of seeing more clearly and loving more deeply. Wherever you started, you can cultivate greater awareness through practice, honesty, and compassion for yourself and for others walking their own path. If this exploration resonated with you, whether you've always felt oddly awake or you're just beginning to question things, consider this your invitation to keep going. Don't turn awareness into an identity. Turn it into a practice. Start small. Notice your thoughts for 5 minutes a day. Journal honestly once a week. Or choose one uncomfortable truth you've been avoiding and gently face it. If you'd like more content that blends science, psychology, and spirituality like this, you're warmly invited to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you don't miss future deep dives. It also helps massively if you like this video, leave a comment sharing your experience of feeling more or less awake, and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Above all, remember, you are not behind. Your path, with its exact mix of numbness and clarity, is the doorway you've been given. Walk it consciously.